Joe Douglas, his year just got a hell of a lot more interesting because they have to be in on this quarterback class because this is a rare year that at pick 17 or 24 or whatever the hell it is, you can draft your starter of the future. I'll say it with my chest right now.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rodgers. You are listening to a rookie review episode. We're not sure we're going to do this every single week, but because NFL is so talk of the town right now, we wanted to double dip a little bit for our second podcast of the week. So we gave you what matters most from every single game, not necessarily a rookie perspective, but so many rookies played, stood out. And of course, we got the quarterbacks as well. We wanted to talk about it and devote an entire show to it. Connor?
You could say it.
How are you, man? I'm sorry.
Oh, man. You guys want to know how good of a friend and co-host Trevor is that he texted me the next afternoon because, like, it's nothing against anybody that did text me. I appreciate you all the same. But a lot of some people I haven't heard from in literally years. I'm not even kidding. It was like, this is a sickening thing to say, but it was like a close family member died. The way some of the texts I was getting. I heard from people that I've not heard from in so long. But you let it marinate properly. You really, really did. I mean, to put my last 24 hours into perspective, right? I go into NBC, we do fantasy football happy hour. I take my mic off and run to my car, drive home, maybe just a tick too fast, get in the train. I somehow made in World Trade Center my 3 p.m. pre-show meeting, 3:30, 3 p.m., whatever it was.
It's professional, folks.
I mean, the excitement around the Jets under Aaron Rodgers was unlike anything I think Jets fans in this lifetime have seen. And we do the pregame show. You see the entrance at MetLife. I have taken a massive dump on MetLife Stadium my entire life. I've never seen it look like that with the wristbands, the lights, like a college atmosphere.
It looked like a college atmosphere, man. It looked like a Penn State whiteout Thursday night game or something.
And then 4 plays into the man's career, like it all happens. And then the craziest part is the Jets win one of the best Monday Night Football games I can remember in the last couple of years. Truly, I say that unbiased. Like, I think everybody else was thinking it too. They're like, this game is out of control. And then I actually slept down in the city. Woke up, took the train back, did basically the whole thing all over again.
He slept in the street, folks.
He felt that way.
He was so distraught. He just, exited the building and just, fell asleep on the streets of New York.
And when I woke up on the streets of New York, I was like, did that really, I really need to, I was like, did that really all happen? Like all of it.
Dude.
The injury to the punt return to shout out Xavier Gipson. I mean, my goodness. But you are a great friend for letting it marinate a little bit and not, it's a lot in the moment. It really, really is.
I thought about it and, Bucs fans I've seen some tweets about this and it's true. Like we were in that spot. Like I can only imagine if we had signed Tom Brady and then Tom Brady goes down 4 plays into his Buccaneer career. Like I would be in the exact same spot. And I would have been like you. It's almost like you don't know what to say. Like you don't even know if this is real. This is not going to be an entire Jets podcast, but we are going to talk a little bit about the Jets situation because it does impact the NFL draft. So we'll talk about that up at the top. And then we're going to get into breaking down CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young's debuts. And then we're going to give you some other rookies that stood out. But my future father-in-law and I went to a Jets bar here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And
love to hear that they have one. There's a lot of New Yorkers in Charlotte, though, so I'm not surprised at all.
There are. And, brother, it was incredible.
I mean, can't imagine.
They packed the thing out. They're doing the JETS chant to a level of volume that I thought we were shaking the building. And when Breece Hall, because Breece Hall's run was like, what, the first play of the game, second play of the game, something?
Yeah, it was the second play.
He had like a 15-yard run on the second play of the game. You'd have thought they won the Super Bowl. Like people are on tables. They're going nuts. Like it was insane. And then 2 plays later, obviously Rodgers gets hurt. And just the silence in the building and the silence in the stadium was horrendous. I wouldn't wish it like funeral on level. Any fan. Like that was Hard Knocks, everything in the offseason. Like it sucked. But to bring it back around to the conversation that we want to have here on this show, with Rodgers being out for the year, that means he's not going to play 65% of the snaps. Not playing 65% of the snaps means the Jets actually keep their first round pick.
It's over.
Now, right. And so they're only giving a second then, right? It's the second round. Okay. So there's no other stipulations.
That trade is done.
Okay. So the trade's done now. It's going to be the second round pick. Connor, put your NFL draft hat on as well as your Jets, I guess, evaluator hat on for where that team is, what you think they're going to do at quarterback short term, like right now this year, and then what the long-term thoughts are for quarterback, including that first round pick that they now have that they thought they weren't going to have.
Right. I think that's why so importantly, we wanted to kick this show off with that, because it's not something that like in Jets land we might be talking about in terms of the long term, but in this show, I think it's massive. I think the Jets having their first round pick, no matter where it falls, the Jets, in my opinion, very well could be in the mix of this quarterback class. So we'll start with the short term, right? Everybody saw it on Monday Night Football. I say this with as little bias as possible because I've covered some awful, awful, awful Jets teams. Adam Gase era comes top of mind, but plenty of other ones too. This team is really good. Like you look at the defense, top to bottom. You look at Breece Hall trying to pull off his best Adrian Peterson. I mean, what?
Holy cow, he was incredible.
I mean, not far removed from that torn knee, and it looked like the guy shot out of a cannon play after play, making something out of nothing. They have Garrett Wilson, who made one of the greatest catches I've seen in MetLife Stadium, and we know how good some of the catches have been there, mostly on the Giants side. I think that the short term is because they have no choice. Zach Wilson is going to get his chance in the short term. Now, that short term is tough, right? You got Dallas. We saw they ate the Giants alive. You got New England. That's a good defense. You're going to see Kansas City, Denver, and the Eagles. That's the next five. Before the bye week, I believe. That's a really brutal place to be for Zach Wilson, but that's the NFL in year 3, right? Like you just got to put up or shut up, and that's the way it goes, whether you expect it or not. I think the Jets are going to add a veteran. They're going to add a veteran, right? What capacity a veteran that is, we don't know. Is that try to swing a trade for stability with Jacoby Brissett or Gardner Minshew? Is that sign a Carson Wentz to the practice squad? What we can rule out right now, because a lot of people are pulling the how do you recover from this? You can't, right? Like the closest thing you could have done is somehow got Matthew Stafford at the deadline. And I think the Rams are just going to, Sean McVay's not signing up for that in my mind. They looked really good against Seattle. Let's just put all that, like that's not living in reality at the moment right now. So you can't recover from this in the moment. So we know Zach Wilson's going to get a shot. And if he fails, which I'm rooting for Zach Wilson, but there's a good chance that in this gauntlet, it's not going to go great for him. And the defense in the run game is going to have to carry this team to places that is so hard for any defense in run game. Then they can move to a veteran, whatever. That tells you the Jets are going to be in on the quarterback class next year, right? And for people that, aren't ready to go to that conversation, well, this is a draft show, so maybe you're just in the wrong moment right now. Trevor and I are already on top of this is a deep draft class at quarterback. Caleb Williams, Drake May, those guys are going at the top. And then you get into the tier of Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Shadur Sanders, Riley Leonard, Bo Nix, Quinn Ewers. This is a deep, deep list. The Jets now not surrendering that first round pick to the Packers. If Zach Wilson doesn't prove he can be the guy with the state of this roster, whether Aaron Rodgers retires or not, let's say he doesn't. Let's say Aaron Rodgers says, I'm going to go through the grueling rehab of an Achilles. I'm going to come back at 40 years old and I'm going to prove the world wrong because I think this team can win a Super Bowl. You need the guy behind him more than ever right now. And Joe Douglas, his year just got a hell of a lot more interesting because they have to be in on this quarterback class because this is a rare year that at pick 17 or 24 or whatever the hell it is, you can draft your starter of the future. I'll say it with my chest right now. I think you can get your starter of the future. Maybe not a play-ready guy, but you can get your starter of the future. We talk about like a lot of teams that are really interesting in this quarterback class. I think they're gonna have a really interesting season, the Jets. So at the top, we're focused on that. But no matter where they pick, their draft just got a hell of a lot more interesting.
I totally agree with you. I think that in this quarterback class, as it currently stands, you can convince yourself that there is a guy that can get it done for you. Shoot, maybe not even in the first round. Like
Right.
You might have even been thinking if the Jets had their second round pick and Zach Wilson, they were pretty much done with him anyways. They could have been looking at quarterback, I feel like, in the second round. Now you just accelerate that a little bit more. You mentioned the Matthew Stafford pick. Is there anyone potentially out there other than Stafford that you would throw in the mix to think about trading something like a first round pick for? Or is it basically like just Stafford? And if you wouldn't get Stafford, which is going to be difficult to do. And the reason why I bring it up is because I was talking with Sam Monson earlier today about this, because to me, Kirk Cousins is kind of in the same category. And if you're going to trade a first round pick for a veteran quarterback that you think gives you a Super Bowl window, he's actually the easier one to do that because he's only got 1 year left on his deal. So you could basically go to the Vikings and say, hey, we weren't expecting to have a first round pick anyways.
Right.
So let's trade the first round pick for Cousins and essentially tell Minnesota, we're going to overpay for Cousins. You pay for him. We'll give you a first round pick, but you still got to pay most of his contract. So we don't have to, because I assume that the Jets are probably near the cap floor. You could also do something like that with Matthew Stafford. It wouldn't be new for the Rams because they basically did that to get Stafford. But Stafford's contract's a lot longer and it's a little more complicated than that. And so I'm not sure if that one works, but it sounds like you're basically like, hey, it is what it is. We'll go as far as the defense can take us this year. And then we're really looking at quarterback in next year's class.
Yeah, I think the only way I would even entertain that, and I get it, especially it's very interesting if the Vikings, it doesn't make sense to the Vikings if their season goes the wrong way, big if, but if their season went the wrong way. If I'm the Jets, I only entertain the overpay if it's a pick in 2025. I would, looking at the depth of this quarterback class and the timeline, right? Let's focus on the timeline. Let's live in a wild world right now and map it all out and say that happens. The Jets land Kirk Cousins. We're not going to say for what yet. Kirk Cousins is going to play out the rest of the year trying to help the Jets get to the promised land. Aaron Rodgers says, I'm not retiring, which let's all pray. He's going to come back and plan to play in 2024. I don't think you can just roll 2024 again with final year of Zach Wilson's deal and Aaron Rodgers at 40 coming off an Achilles. I would think you need to have that first round quarterback playing behind Rodgers coming off the Achilles. He's going to get a lot of reps. He's going to get the mentorship of Rodgers, which was great for Wilson this summer. And so if I did that, I would trade my 2025 first rounder because it's a different window, right? Like it's a different window. I understand Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and AVT, they're really, really young, but this window's different right now. You got DJ Reed out there. You got some veterans. It's a different window.
That's why I kind of entertain it.
Oh, right? It's very entertaining. Like it's not like hang up the phone.
But it does make sense for you to say, hey, we were probably already looking at quarterback in some capacity anyways. Now it's just accelerated. Now, maybe you do go get a Bo Nix, a Michael Penix, a Shedeur Sanders, a JJ McCarthy, a Michael Pratt, whoever it is. And they instead, you're either in a situation where you're taking a first round quarterback and allowing them to probably start right away, or you're letting them sit behind Aaron Rodgers, who's going to have his final year. And I think both situations probably make a lot of sense for the Jets. We'll unfortunately have the Jets first round conversation now quite a bit when we go through mock draft exercises and things like that. But speaking of first round rookie quarterbacks, I did want to review what the 3 rookie starters were able to do this past weekend, because we had somebody who watched the What Matters Most episode and they were like, man, you guys talked about Anthony Richardson a little bit. You talked about CJ Stroud a little bit. You didn't even touch on Bryce Young because we were too busy kind of talking about the Falcons and their situation and their outlook. And so, I thought about it and I was like, hey, we could do a deeper dive into all 3 of these guys. So Connor, I'll let you choose who you want to start with. Let's dig into Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and CJ Stroud a little bit more from what you saw from their first starts.
I'm going to start with Bryce Young, who ironically got the lowest grade as a passer out of these 3 guys in the PFF system.
It was the picks. It was the picks.
Right, of course. I mean, he had a 38.3 passing grade. He had 2 interceptions. Richardson only had 1. CJ Stroud didn't have any. And I'll say this. I think I liked the tape better than I expected. I watched this game as much as I could of it. This 1 p.m. window was chaos trying to keep up with all the games. So the tape always we were having the show earlier in the week. It was kind of, real Skyview reactions. And then you get to go to the tape, and it really painted the picture of this game. Number one, right out of the gate. And it's just where they are. I'm not like crapping on them. I think they need time. Carolina doesn't have explosive playmaking. They just don't. I mean, they don't have it on the outside. Adam Thielen is, surprise, banged up again, right? This is how it's been for Adam Thielen at the end of the Minnesota tenure, and it's carried over to Carolina. Incredible player that his body's probably breaking down as he gets older. Bryce, to put in perspective, Bryce Young was looking at Hayden Hurst all the time because that was his best option in this game.
Yeah.
The stat line, 20 of 38 on 42 dropbacks. He throws for 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Those 2 picks were the only 2 turnover-worthy plays, so he didn't have any, he didn't gain a ton of luck right there. It's not like he had 5 turnover-worthy plays. He was sacked twice, which was the least amount of the other guys. He was sacked the least out of the other guys. He only threw 2 screens, which was half as much as the other 2 guys that threw 4. So Carolina, they had a drop back game working with Bryce. And yes, there was some quick game here, but it was a drop back game. He was asked to be a full field reader, hang in the pocket, and he made some tough throws. He really, really did. And Jesse Bates got him twice. Jesse Bates is paid a gazillion dollars a year because he's going to get you. He's an incredible player on the back end that has ball hawking ski. He takes away the football. That's why he got paid the way he did. And Bryce Young, I think Trevor, this was the classic learning example of how tighter and how quicker windows close at the NFL level, because when he was loading up on those picks, you can see it. But man, is the play speed of an NFL secondary much, much different. And I'll say this, after one of the picks, he bounced back and led the touchdown drive, where I said, you know what? This dude is resilient. He doesn't look overwhelmed. He doesn't look scared. He's not working with much at all. He's really, really not. He isn't being asked to run. Bryce Young was asked to do a hell of a lot more than freaking Desmond Ridder was asked to do in this game. And Desmond Ridder was a 4-year starter in college and had a year in the NFL already. I know he was on the bench for a lot of it, and I know Atlanta won big, so Desmond Ridder didn't have to drop back and throw the ball around the yard. But what Bryce Young is being asked, he will come out better from this, Trevor. That was my takeaway. I thought he looked the part despite the stat line being pretty ugly, and I have a lot of confidence in this kid after watching the tape.
I agree with what a lot of what you said. I love that we both wrote down specifically, boy, NFL safeties are a lot faster than college safeties, because that is literally something that I wrote down. Jesse Bates is one of the best in the NFL, but in my best dad joke voice, the dude should change his last name to Baits, as that's how you spell Bates, because he truly does that, man. He's an artist at baiting the quarterback, and especially when it's rookies, he's feasting on some of those guys. I watched both of those interceptions to Jesse Bates, and they're both very similar. They're kind of like it's like an in/post route, kind of depending on how Terrence Marshall was reading the defense at the time. And the very first play of the game, they run a concept where there's, I believe, 3 wide receiver options to Bryce Young's left, and there's at least 1 to his right, and it was Terrace Marshall. And Bryce Young, hiked the ball, looked to his left, but you could kind of tell, he's looking that way, but he's not really analyzing it. He was trying to manipulate where the safety was going, because he immediately turned around, and the second he turned his shoulders back to the middle of the field, Terrace Marshall's hitting the break of his in route, and he is firing the ball right in there. And Bates was just a second late on that very first throw that he had of the game. Bates saw that exact, I don't want to say exact look, because it did come out of a different formation, but a very similar look and a very similar route the second time around. And that time he was ready. He was staring at Young the entire time. And when Terrace Marshall's shoulders turned, Bates put his foot in the ground and immediately started running right over the middle. And he met the ball right there before Terrace Marshall could get to it. And so, but it was the same exact mannerisms from Bryce Young. It was, he looked left. I think he tried to manipulate and almost make it look like he was looking at 2 different targets to his left, but you could tell those shoulders popped very quick, and he was immediately into his throw. He knew exactly where he was going to go the entire time, and it was always going to be that middle of the field route to Terrace Marshall. Bates just missed it the first time, but if you do it twice in a row to Jesse Bates, he's too damn good, and he's going to get you. And I think Bryce Young learned a very valuable lesson about NFL safeties this past weekend. I thought the touchdown throw was sick. I love the fact that it was a little RPO play action look. And the second he realized that Hayden Hurst had the leverage that he needed, he fired it from a very open hip platform, and he was able to just zip it right in there. Perfect ball placement. I thought the ball placement was really nice all game long. You are right. Bryce Young was required to do a lot more in this game than Desmond Ridder, who ended up getting the win as the opposing quarterback. I'm a little surprised that his passing grade was as low as it is, but it is because of those turnovers, and PFF's grading scale is grading every quarterback in the NFL. They're not saying, here's his passing grade for a rookie making his first start. There's not that context to it. They've got to grade Bryce Young the same way from a data standpoint that you're grading Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or whoever it is, these guys that are playing at the top. So all things considered, I thought Bryce Young had a really nice first game. Obviously, they don't come up with a win, but I echo a lot of the same things that you said. It was a really nice learning day from him, and I think those big time throws will come. He was still not afraid to throw in the middle of the field. The ball placement was pretty nice for the most part. And you mentioned he bounced back after that interception to lead a touchdown drive. Bryce Young's always going to bounce back, man. That's been who he is his entire career, and I don't think that's going to change in the NFL.
That's just the resiliency of him and the smarts, the quick release. Like you could find what you wanted to in that game to know, okay, Bryce Young he's going to be the same guy he was in college, and it might take some time. It's going to take some team building. That's the number one thing I can't state enough throughout this podcast. It's going to take team building, and it's going to take learning up against the greats of, once again, just how rapidly things quickly close at the NFL level, which I think probably takes us to Anthony Richardson, right? Because he was the other quarterback with a turnover amongst the three rookie starters, although a different one. Richardson's going to play a different brand of football than Bryson Stroud. And it was, I was really glad that I watched the tape on these three consecutively, because it was fascinating to see what they were asked to do, the kind of coaching they're getting in the different play styles. Richardson, a big-bodied, deep arm kind of passer that can run, that can evade sacks, that is so naturally strong, but does not have the rhythm, quick release touch throwing that Bryce possesses, but he has extraordinary physical capabilities that just show up on a football field. Like it is, we said this, Trevor, it's cliche, and we said it earlier in the week, but the man looks the part when he gets hit, or when he gets hit and it doesn't really faze him. The plays he can make with his legs, they ran a little RPO. I'd like to see them run more RPO. The tackles he can break, and some of the velocity he can throw with. Now, he threw a little high at times in this game. He got bailed out sometimes he didn't. He was another guy that didn't always see those defenders lurking underneath and closing in. But Richardson and Steichen, to me, is a perfect match of what Steichen is going to trust him to do, how Steichen's going to get him comfortable, and when Steichen's going to hold up the green light and say, all right, kid, go. Trust yourself and make an extraordinary play. So Richardson, I think, already looks further ahead than many expected, because he was so raw coming out. And I think there's, for once again, a team with not an overwhelming amount of talent. Michael Pittman helps. It's a little bit of a difference, but not a ton of talent. He was pressured plenty. I thought Richardson looked the part.
Yeah, arm talent for days, right? I think that was very evident right off the top. I really liked Richardson's initial game, and I know he had the turnover and the accuracy. It's still work in progress. When I say this with my scouting hat on, we all want the quarterback who has the strongest arm in the world, but the stronger the arm, the more accurate you have to be, because when you're climbing the miles per hour with the ball and how fast it's flying, you just have to be naturally more accurate, or that at least has to come through repetition, because it just gets more dangerous the more juice you're putting on a throw. So with Richardson, he was certainly growing still in that area of Florida, and that was the root of a lot of accuracy issues that he had there. But I'll say this: really love the way he navigated the pocket under pressure.
Yes.
This is somebody who has all the athletic ability in the world with his legs, who you would not blame him at all if the second he felt pressure, he was dropping 8, 9 steps back in the pocket and he was trying to Madden 2004 Michael Vick it, right? Where you just go, oh, free rusher? Okay, I'm going to bail 15 yards backwards and then beat you to the sideline and then launch it 30 yards down the field because he has the ability to do that. But he didn't. He stood there. His fundamentals stayed clean. Loved his footwork in this game, especially when he was bouncing, very subtly bouncing around and letting pressure just barely go by him, keeping his eyes downfield. That was awesome to see. Loved that pocket presence from Anthony Richardson. I think it's an underrated part of who he is as a player. Now, I will say this. I think Shane Steichen is clearly trying to ease Richardson into all of this. A lot of half-field reads in this game. Yeah. A lot of concepts that were multi-leveled going to one side of the field. Sail concepts, double outs, up and outs, things where he was able to look one side of the field, and you can tell Shane Steichen, and I think this goes back to UF as well, they'll tell him, hey, if the safety comes down, this is where you throw the ball. Hey, if the cornerback retreats, this is where you throw the ball. Right. And he's got one key read on a multi-layered concept, and that's where the ball is going. That interception, and I'll tell you this, the Jags knew it was coming because the Jags played very tight coverage to the sidelines all game long with multiple players. They knew the half-field reads, the rollouts. They knew that stuff was going to come from Richardson, and they had the bodies at the sideline to be ready for it. The interception is a perfect example of it. It was a variation of a sail concept, which for everybody out there, a sail concept is there's 3 levels to the throw that are at one side. They're at one side of the field. Now, you can kind of like vary how you're manipulating the coverage, but the thought process is you're trying to overload one side of the field with more receiving options than the defense has guys to cover it. And you're basically reading, okay, you've got a vertical route, you've got a deeper intermediate route, and you probably got something either out of the backfield or a very quick out route. So it's like multi-layered stuff, and you figure out which one's going to be more open at the time when you're looking over in that direction to release the ball. Tyson Campbell baits the absolute hell out of him, and Campbell starts to creep down on the player who has the most shallow route. And then the second Richardson loads up, Campbell flips the hips, stops on a dime, immediately retreats, and cuts off the ball to the intermediate route where Richardson was throwing the ball. You pointed out Tyson Campbell was a big-time standout player this past weekend for the Jags, and you are absolutely right. He was a stud all game long, and especially on that play, you could tell they went into that week and worked on it. And unfortunately, Richardson's just not at the point where he can make these full field reads. And as long as he is a half field read kind of a quarterback, defenses are going to be able to key on where he's going to look, and they're going to be able to overload that side of the line of scrimmage with coverage. So the real next step for him is to hit those backside digs or to look in the other direction and find a different player, give a guy who's maybe in a one-on-one a chance down the opposite sideline, or shoot, maybe even take off that direction himself. So when he gets to that point, when we open up the field a little bit more for Richardson, that's when things are going to start to get dangerous for teams having to try to cover not just his throwing ability, but his ability with his legs too.
That's exactly right. You'll make him throw in the middle of the field and be accurate in the middle of the field. That's a great call out by you, Trevor, the sideline stuff and how a defense can combat that, because obviously if you're working those half field concepts, you're essentially running flood or whatever it may be to one side, and you have level defenders or layers of defenders in that you're going to have to attack a different part of the field. And that's when I think you're going to have to get the run game going up the middle. The quarterback draws with him. Fingers crossed for Richardson that Jonathan Taylor comes back after this short-term IR stint, because that would help it. That would help, in my opinion, keep defenders loaded in the box in the middle of the field and make life easier for him as well, which takes us to our final rookie quarterback who made his NFL debut, in CJ Stroud, all these guys had roller coaster games. There's no way around it. But Stroud was able to avoid the big mistake. Now, he did have 2 turnover-worthy plays, and one of them, when he was rolling out and kind of dancing up the sideline and just kind of floated the ball up for grabs, he definitely could have threw an interception in this game. But outside of that, Trevor, 4 of his passes were dropped. He was sacked quite a bit. I believe he was sacked 5 times in this
Yeah.
game. But at the same time with Stroud, I saw him drive some throws to the sideline with incredible accuracy and incredible rhythm and what you want to see from him. And Bobby Slowick wanted to get the screen game going, understandably, for Stroud, because that's, listen, Slowick comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. They want to get the ball out of Stroud's hands and let some of these guys make plays with the ball in their hands and kind of get him comfortable. That's what you do for the young quarterbacks. But when Stroud was asked to truly drop back and rip the ball outside the numbers, and we had a little Robert Woods revival in this game as a possession threat, I was really impressed in that capacity with Stroud. And I shouldn't say impressed because it's something we saw him do such a good job of in college. But the guy Stroud was in college really translated to this game in a sense that when you have Stroud drop back and you keep him clean, he can carve you up in the 10 to 19 kind of area of the field. And he was somebody that had he had 3 20-plus yard passes in this game. He had some explosive plays with his arm. But as we said on the earlier show, Trevor, it could be tough to evaluate him at time. The Texans are dealing with multiple injuries on the offensive line. So sometimes he was pressured really after he blinked and caught the snap.
Right.
And then there's a fact of they have capable players in this offense, but they don't have somebody that truly strikes fear in you in this offense. That Stroud is somebody, and we saw it in this game, he will throw the ball down the field and let his guys make a play. I look at this offense and don't know if the guy exists to consistently do that.
I agree with you 100%. I feel like he is not going to have the resources around him to really put up the stats that you want. What you want to see is growth from what we saw in game one, which was the most important part. And I'm glad you called it out at the very beginning. Not having turnover-worthy plays. First 3 dropbacks from CJ Stroud, okay? I noted this. Very first 3 dropbacks in his first series. 5-man blitz, heavy simulated pressure into a 4-man front, and then another 5-man blitz. Mike McDonald's formula was very simple to start this thing out. We're going to overwhelm their offensive line. They don't have the bodies to be able to block him, and we're going to make this rookie quarterback's life a living hell by pressuring him, especially at the beginning of the game. Their thought process was we are going to blitz the hell out of him in his first series, and we are going to make him see ghosts the rest of the game. I felt like he may have seen ghosts a little bit, but not as much as you maybe would have thought, especially for 2 years ago, CJ Stroud at Ohio State. So that makes me think that the growth is really happening for him. Kind of go back to our first podcast of the week where I said, as long as he survives this year, I think they'll know that they've got a guy that they can potentially invest their franchise in. I thought it was really impressive that he was still not afraid to go over the middle of the field. A lot of his really nice throws were middle of the field throws where there was a lot of traffic and a lot of congestion. You mentioned sometimes, man, when he throws to the sideline, he's got a beautiful comeback ball that he could hit to those guys in great rhythm. I think that rhythm stuff will come, but that's probably going to be, year 2, year 3 stuff for him. So all in all, really liked what I saw from Stroud in week 1. It's not nearly as bad as like the low PFF grade, passing grade would lead you to believe. Right. Everything's kind of in context here. And that's why we wanted to break down the performances of all 3 of those guys. So
it was great to watch the tape on him. No doubt. Yeah. Not to cut you off. I mean, it's just, I thought you're right. Like the grade system obviously is very, very useful, but I also think you're exactly right that these are guys making their first starts in the NFL, and all 3 of them they're not going out there throwing to AJ Brown and, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So right. Overall, if I was a fan of all 3 of like any of those 3 teams, I wouldn't be, you're obviously never hitting the panic button, but I would actually feel confident of the way these guys look poised.
Yep, I would agree. I'm very encouraged by them. We each have 3 non-quarterback rookies who impressed us in their first week of action. But before we get to those, got to remind y'all that football is absolutely back in full swing for another week of epic games coming up this weekend. And who's got you covered on action for every single one of them? That's right. It's our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet just $5 on any football game. Get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Plus, nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers, so even if you're an existing customer, can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now Use promo code PFF when you sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with the promo code PFF. The crown is yours this season. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling at 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.com. DraftKings.com/football for terms and eligibility, responsible gaming resources as well. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions do apply. Connor, who's the first of your three rookies that you want to shout out from the non-quarterback category this past weekend?
Listen, I'll get deeper into the weeds throughout the season, but I got to start at the top and just go with Will Anderson, right? I mean, the guy deserves the spotlight here. And
he had a good game.
He had a great game, and this trade was highly criticized and scrutinized, and I understand it was a lot to give up, and we might look back on it and go, man, that's one of the most fascinating trades in NFL history. Will Anderson, though, played his ass off against the run. He made big plays as a pass rusher. He had a quarterback hit on Lamar Jackson that led to an interception. He had a sack that he won on the outside. I mean, he played with the strong hands we saw in college. He fought through guys even holding on to him. If you're the Texans, and listen, DeMeco Ryans is going to build this defense as we've seen from that tree, right? You think of the Niners, they have Nick Bosa, and he's kind of the engine to that attacking front four. You look at the Jets, and they signed Carl Lawson to really give that defense a shot in the arm to get them afloat while they were going to develop, first-round pick in Jermaine Johnson. Bryce Huff was a surprise, so I won't act like that. But Will McDonald, another first-round pick. It's based on the front four. DeMeco Ryans comes from the same tree, and he's like, I need guys that can rush, and I need an absolute dude that stands out amongst all. And Will Anderson, game one, I mean, this is who Will Anderson is. He dominated in college for a couple of years. He goes to the NFL. He looks the part right away against that Ravens front. This is going to be somebody that you can lean on, somebody that you could tap into for double-digit sacks. But Trevor, I loved how strong and how powerful and how high the effort was against the run as well, because that means he doesn't have to come off the field. This scheme rotates a lot, but Will is just that dude that you can lean on. DeMeco's a great coach for him. Pass rushers take a while to blossom. They don't typically blossom in those first 2 years compared to other positions in terms of stat production. Will Anderson's a good one, man. I loved everything I saw from him in this game. It was the same player we saw dominate at Alabama, just on an NFL field.
I was just about to say, it was Will Anderson.
Right. It was a surprise. I was like, oh my God, who is this?
No, but he was exactly Will Anderson. I think both the strengths and the weaknesses. But for us to say that the strengths were just as much of a standout, and still there's parts of his game that he's still learning, but that's what happened in game one. You love that, because that means that they're not overwhelmed. It means that they don't have to attack getting better on two different fronts, right? Making weaknesses stronger, but also trying to make sure that you stand out in the areas that you stood out in college. Will Anderson, strong as an ox, great leverage, great speed to power, good explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. I thought the push-pull move was very imposing, no matter who he was going up against. Again, that speed to power bull rush I thought was once again very effective this time at the NFL level. He still needs to develop the pass rush moves. Yep. If he's not push pulling you, if he's not straight up bull rushing you back into the lap of the quarterback, he kind of struggled to get off of blocks. And that was I watched his film, and then I went back and I read my scouting report of him word for word, and it was basically the same thing. But again, that's not bad, because you're already seeing the strengths of what we saw in college show up at the NFL level. So now it's just a matter of time before he gets more pass rush moves, before he becomes more comfortable with that. So I love that shout out. I'll stay on the defensive line for my first one. Brother, Keeanu Benton, shocker, was great. I mean, Cam Hayward is going to miss time for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has a groin injury that I believe is going to require surgery. So Benton played maybe a little bit more than they thought he was going to after Hayward went out. And he's going to play a lot more than they thought he was going to probably early on in his rookie career, because he's probably going to be a starter next week. And so far, so good for this dude. 86.2 overall grade, 72.0 run defense grade, and then an 82.9 pass rush grade. When this dude maintains pad level, I mean, he's a starting caliber defensive lineman in the NFL already. Oh, yeah. We saw flashes of that against the 49ers. He's a good football team. They're good in the trenches. The hands were fast. He was able to swim move a bunch of different guys. There are a couple of times when San Francisco, because they like to move their offensive linemen, they were trying to reach block him. He's like, nope, we're not doing that. He'd swim by him immediately, get into the backfield, force either the quarterback or the running back to veer from their course. And it's just, you watch the snap-by-snap plays of him, and he's already so impactful, especially as a run defender, man. The guy just does not lose those kinds of reps. So Benton, it was a lot of the brilliance that stood out from his Wisconsin tape. We saw it at the NFL level against the freaking San Francisco 49ers this past weekend. So I'm not ready to crown the guy as defensive rookie of the year yet, but damn, very few teams in the NFL can afford to lose a guy like Cam Hayward.
Oh yeah. There ain't many built like him.
Keeanu Benton's not going to be Cam Hayward, but the floor of how they're replacing him, I think, is a lot better than most rookies that you would ever draft, especially outside of the first round. So great start for Benton. Loved what I saw from him.
I love that, because watching Benton, who was a multi-year starter in college and played multiple alignments really well, right? When you think a team guy, Benton was somebody in college that if there was games where Wisconsin was like, listen, dude, you got to play shade nose. You're going to have to eat a lot of space. You're going to do a lot of dirty work. It's going to be a long day. He'd do it. And then when they put him at 3-tech and go, hey, big boy, pin those ears back and get after it, he'd do it. And we got to see that at the Senior Bowl, where I was like, this dude's pass rush ability is severely underrated. So the fact to see that kind of impact, and we loved that pick from the Steelers right away. We loved the Steelers draft. And It goes to show you, as your line gets, even a legend like Cam Hayward, as you get older in certain areas, restocking is so vital. And that's something the Steelers as a franchise have done decade after decade. They've been able to restock in areas that they age out a little bit. So I'm excited to continue to watch him. And staying within that division, man, Zay Flowers. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I was high man on Zay Flowers. He wasn't my wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. But Zay Flowers has fallen into a place with the coach and Todd Monken that understands how to maximize Zay Flowers. He's a special talent with the ball in his hands. You look at Zay Flowers' debut, 10 targets, 5 of them were screens, Trevor. 5 of them. That says to me, this is a team that drafted him with a plan. They drafted him with a plan. They needed somebody that is a threat with the ball in his hands, and how do we get him going early? And how do we make life a little easier for Lamar Jackson when he's not having his best day? And it's no surprise with Zay. He's somebody that when the ball is in his hands and he's in space, it's exciting. It's special. He catches 9 of those 10 targets. Like I said, 5 of them were screens, but he had 54 yards after the catch, 34 after contact. 5 of those catches went for first downs. 4 of them were explosive plays, 15 plus yards. And he forced 4 missed tackles. It's just nice when you have a quarterback-friendly player. And I'm not saying Lamar Jackson needs the training wheels, but every quarterback should want a quarterback-friendly player, somebody that you can draw up extensions of the run game to as a wide receiver, but also play the position. So
Patrick Mahomes had a quarterback-friendly player, and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. You think he feels bad about it?
All the greats do.
They don't give a shit.
Exactly. So Zay Flowers. Listen, I love Todd Monken, and I know you've covered a team that had Todd Monken on the staff. You know him even better than I do. I just think he's a dude that gets it when it comes to personnel and what we want to do as a football team on offense.
Whenever I've been around Todd Monken, I mean, the theme is simple. He wants to put the ball in his best player's hands. That's it. I mean, for Tampa, that was a lot of 2 tight end stuff when they had OJ Howard and Cam Brate. Obviously, they had Mike Evans as well. But, when they weren't throwing it to Mike Evans, they were getting a lot of 2 tight end stuff, and they were running very heavy, and it was helping out their run game, and it was helping out play action. And when it comes to this Baltimore team, they've got a lot of electric players in the passing game, and certainly getting the ball in Zay Flowers' hands very quickly. A player who, when we scouted him, when anybody scouted him, he just moves differently. The man just moves differently. And I think that Todd Monken absolutely sees that. and he's going to try to shine a light on it like we saw this past weekend. I'm going to stick at receiver. Brother, Puka Nacua.
Puka Nacua.
Rams
WR1. Hell yeah. New Cooper Cup? No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, take the floor.
Brother, Puka Nacua had a 40.5 wide receiver usage percentage. 40.5. Obviously, if Cooper Kupp plays in this game, like that's Cooper Kupp, it's not Puka Nacua. But still, for Kupp to not be in this game, and for them to just go, yeah, Nacua, you're just going to get the lion's share of everything. 15 targets, 10 catches, 119 receiving yards, 80 receiving grade. I mean, hat is off to this young man. It's so funny because some people hit us up during the draft process last year, and they were like, hey, what do you think about Puka Nacua? What do you think about him? He's been a really productive dude at BYU. I was not the biggest fan of his because I just didn't see an elite athlete. I didn't see a great separator. He's somebody who had experience both inside and out, could play on the outside, could play in the slot, very savvy dude, pretty physical guy. But I just felt like he really struggled to separate and create separation windows in college, whether that was with long speed, whether that was with flexibility, whether that was with agility, or whether it was with his route running. He was a well-rounded wide receiver, but unfortunately, if the best thing that you have going for you is somebody saying, yeah, he's just a good, well-rounded receiver, chances are you're pretty dang replaceable when you get to the NFL level. And that's why he ended up falling in the draft. But it's so funny because what I just said as a compliment that's a little bit of a backhanded compliment was exactly the compliment they used him as this past weekend. They aligned him on the outside. They aligned him in the slot. They put him in places where they said, hey, Nacua, if they have outside leverage on you, we want you to go in. If they've got inside leverage on you, we want you to go out. Create these subtle things, and Matthew Stafford's going to get you the damn football. And he went, okay. And the separation windows, especially when he was up against really close coverage, it's not like he was separating super well. It's not like he turned into this different receiver. But he's smart, he's savvy, he was reliable when they threw him the football, and he really understood how to find those soft spots in zone coverage. Now, it helped because Seattle's defensive line stinks. I mean, they cannot get pressure. They were the second lowest graded pass rush team that we had in the NFL this past weekend. They were bottom 5 in total pressures. They were bottom 5 in pass rush win rate as a team overall. So they had to throw extra bodies at the line of scrimmage just to try to get some pressure on Matthew Stafford. And when Stafford felt pressure was coming, Nacua was there, man. Nacua felt it. He was the guy that they consistently went to. My hat is off to him. You know, sometimes those smart, savvy receivers can be really productive ones, especially on weeks like we saw last week with the Los Angeles Rams. Shout out to him.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm the meme of like, you know, what I sleep on versus what you sleep on. And like what I sleep on for other people is the bed, and what I sleep on is Puka Nacua.
Is Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I'm blown away. And shout out to Tutu Atwell, man. We've had our jokes on this pod. Tutu Atwell had a big game for the Rams. He had 5 deep targets in that game. Hey, listen, don't sleep on the Rams' new wide receiver 1 and 2 duo out there. Isn't it not amazing though what Sean McVay can do? It is amazing.
Not just Sean McVay, man, but Stafford was
Stafford's amazing.
Good. Stafford was so good this past week.
He really was.
When that guy's fully healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I really do believe that. He is a top 10 quarterback when he is fully healthy. And he put that on display this past weekend.
So
who's your last guy?
I can't believe we're doing this, but we are going back-to-back Rams on a draft podcast about draft picks, about rookies. I'm going with Kobie Turner.
Wait, the Rams draft class didn't suck, though. Didn't we kind of like it?
No, we did, but they don't draft. Like, this was the first year they were like, okay, we're actually going to participate in the draft. Right. We're going to send our scouts on the road.
We actually like Les Snead.
We're not going to.
But we never get to see it.
yeah. We're not going to rent a Malibu house and just party for the 3 days of the draft while us slobs work. Like, the Rams are actually
could do both.
Proud participants of the NFL draft now, and the rewards, they are reaping the rewards early here because they need to turn this roster over with young, affordable talent. And Puka Nacua, huge contributor week one. Kobie Turner, huge contributor week one. Kobie Turner, the road for Kobie Turner is so fascinating to me, right? I don't believe he was kind of overlooked throughout the draft process, was not invited to the combine. He was not invited to the combine.
Bad.
He was not
Bad
at the
decision.
Senior Bowl.
Bad decision.
Kobie Turner was a shrine guy that was not invited to the NFL combine. Then you watch the tape, or at least I turned on the tape a little late, and I'm like, what am I missing with Kobie Turner? Kobie Turner ends up being my 84th overall player in the draft, which is almost unprecedented for a guy that was not at the combine and was not at the Senior Bowl.
Where did I have him?
I know you liked him.
I am 79, so we had him.
You liked him more than me.
Well, barely. Like same.
Yeah, we saw him the same.
79 and 84. It's the same.
Yeah, we podcast together quite a bit. The Rams take him 89th overall, and I remember the reaction was, it's a guy that didn't get invited to the combine, 89th overall, third round. I'm sitting there like, no, this dude, I can't believe a guy went where he should have went when nobody I thought cared about him. And then there's Kobie Turner out there week one on a Rams defense that is, kind of thin in terms of name recognition. And Trevor, he's the same dude that just plays his ass off. He goes 100 miles an hour against the run. He's got effort as a pass rusher he had a sack in this game.
Love it.
But the run defense, the ability to line him up on the interior, whether it's shade nose or 3-tech or whatever you need of him, and him being able to handle it, despite being under 300 pounds, he looked great in this game. And that's how you rebuild a defensive line, with these guys that have scratched and clawed for everything, that are overlooked in the draft for reasons unknown. I mean, Kobie Turner, once again, a guy that transferred from Richmond to Wake Forest. I compared him to Larry Ogunjobi, an undersized interior defensive lineman that plays stronger than his physical presence. And we saw it right away for the Rams. He comes up big with the sack, but he also got his nose dirty against the run. If the Rams are getting contributions from these guys, third-round picks, day 3 picks, they're going to turn that thing over with Sean McVay. And I can't believe I'm saying that when the state of the roster was in.
I agree with you, man. It was very nice to see the Rams actually have some draft picks. And it was great to see that we liked a Rams draft class. So already seeing some early return on investments. Great. Probably because the roster sucked and there's now, playing time to be had. But shout out to the guys who are obviously making plays. So last guy that I want to give a nod to it's a little bit of a homer pick here, but deserves a recognition. Christian Izien for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Go off.
This was an undrafted free agent from Rutgers. He was a safety / nickel player at Rutgers, ends up going undrafted. He wins the CB3 job in camp. Now, it's not like he was, dethroning somebody who was an incumbent and there and solidified. Like, that job was up for grabs, but this dude won it, and he won it confidently. And you saw that this past week in their win over the Minnesota Vikings. He was aligned in the snap in the slot most of the time, 29 snaps in the slot, 2 as an out wide corner, 2 as a strong safety, 75.2 overall grade, 81.2 coverage grade, allowed 1 catch on the day to KJ Osborne, who was his responsibility for most of the day. I think he got Justin Jefferson once in assignment and the ball didn't get thrown his way. He got Jordan Addison maybe like 3, 4, or 5 times, but it was mainly KJ Osborne, and he had him shut down. He gave up 1 catch near the very end of the game to KJ Osborne, but he also ripped an interception from KJ Osborne, like right at the goal line, which gave him his first interception of his career, obviously. And he just played with a ton of confidence, man. He was always there to be a good run defender. He'll want the Alexander Madison tackle back that Madison ended up breaking that tackle, staying on his feet and scoring. That was right close to the goal line, but man, he was still fearless trying to go after him and try to bring him down. It was just Madison stayed on his feet and was able to break the tackle. And it was kind of just a, hey, good job by him. But there was another play at the goal line that he defended incredibly well. Just for an undrafted rookie, you've heard me say this on this podcast. I think corner is the toughest position to play in the NFL other than quarterback.
Yeah.
That gets multiplied, I think, even further when you were a rookie trying to do that for the first time. Undrafted free agent, playing in the NFL, starting week 1. And I thought the dude held his own. It was an incredible find by them, and I think that they're going to be just. A lot of people were worried when Todd Bowles said, "Hey, we're going to use Antoine Winfield Jr. as a free safety this year. We're not going to use him as that hybrid slot defender kind of a player that we have the last couple of years. We want him to be our free safety. We want him to roam the full deep field or the deep half, whatever it's going to be." So they really needed somebody to step up, and Izien absolutely did. So big shout out to him.
Dude, no doubt. If there's something Todd Bowles knows, it's playing DB. I mean, this is a Super Bowl winning DB. He's coached a lot of incredible talents and drafted a lot of incredible talents at DBs. And it's cool when you find one in the UDFA process. And
yeah,
from watching that game, the dude popped on tape for a rookie corner, an undrafted rookie corner. He popped on not just tape, on broadcast. I was watching. I'm like, who? I don't even remember going through him, evaluating him that much through the draft.
I didn't.
Right? I was trying to think. I was like, you start going deep in the ranks and notes. It always blows my mind, Trevor. I think it's a good thing to close on. We do this the whole year round. There's, you count in the industry how many people really do. And that number is growing by the year, which is really cool. It shows you where the draft is at. But
yeah,
you and I do this podcast about the draft year round. You are the lead NFL draft analyst for PFF, which has a mock simulator that is as deep as it gets. I'm doing more written work now for the draft for NBC. And there's still guys that sneak through and make a team. And then they're out there week one starting, making game-changing plays.
And if we didn't get to watch them during the draft process, we're certainly going to have a lot of fun evaluating them when they get to the NFL and they start making plays like Christian Izien does. So y'all let us know your thoughts on what you saw from this rookie class in week one. Talk to us about the quarterbacks, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud. Let us know what you thought about our analysis of those guys, what you guys saw out there in those rookies making their first start. And then give us some guys that maybe you want to give a shout out to that we didn't give a shout out to here on the show. We'll be revisiting this and doing some rookie reviews. If you like the segment, if y'all love this, we will try to get it into our weekly segments as much as possible. Maybe a little bit more of a condensed version because we do want to talk about a lot of these college football prospects once college football really continues to get into full swing and we get a little bit further into the season. The middle of the week show is going to be a little bit more focused on college. But if you love this rookie review segment, please let us know. Let us know in the comments. www.youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. Make sure you smash like and subscribe, by the way. Or if you are an audio only person and you want to get your thoughts over to us, at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rodgers on both Twitter and Instagram. That's the best way that you could do that. Connor, you got anything else before we get?
Yeah, I got one final shout out to go out on the pod. Shout out to Jack's American Pub that absolutely fleeced tons and tons of people watching Monday Night Football. So Jack's American Pub had a deal that if the Jets lose while the Packers are not playing, so the Jets need to be playing when the Packers aren't. Obviously, Monday Night Football counts. Packers weren't playing Monday night. If the Jets lose, when you open your tab during that game, if the Jets lose, your tab is free. The entire bar. The Jets just need to lose, and you don't pay a tab. So Jack's Pub, also Bush League move, but whatever. I don't know why anybody in, I think it's a Milwaukee-based bar, wherever it is, somewhere near Wisconsin. I don't know why anybody would have anything against Aaron Rodgers. If I ever got to root for a quarterback of Aaron Rodgers, and I didn't, he lasted 4 plays, by the way. I haven't gotten 2 yet. I would be so grateful for everything he did for the franchise. Different conversation for a different day. I get why some Packers fans are a little bitter about it, but a bar being bitter about it. So he gets hurt, and this bar's packed. People are getting after it. There's high noons everywhere. No, White Claws, whatever. So he gets hurt, and the bar cheers, which, whether it was about the injury or whether it was about their tabs being free, a lot of people think. So a lot of people think it was because they thought their tabs were going to be free. So he gets hurt, he leaves the game, and everybody starts getting really after it. And shout out to AJ Bayatpour. He was the reporter that was on the scene for CBS 58 in Milwaukee, on the scene during this. Brave soul. People are getting fired up. They're ordering their tabs. They're getting hammered for Jets Bills because they think Zach Wilson and the Jets are going to get smoked when Aaron Rodgers leaves this game. And those suckers had to put down their credit cards at the end of the night when Xavier Gipson walked their ass off to win the game. Jack's American Pub, you get the shout out because for the shittiest promotion ever, you fleeced what looked like 100 people that were probably pissed off, hammered, and had an awful Tuesday hangover. They had a worse Tuesday morning than me. Shout out to them.
And this man woke up on the streets of New York.
Yeah. with no quarterback.
Dude, that is what a phenomenal way to end the podcast. I can't end it any better than that. Folks, the next time that you hear from us, it will be Monday night. We're back on our regular schedule next week, so it'll be Monday night at 9:30. This is kind of like an emergency pod. So actually, as we are recording, I'm not sure when it's going to come out. We're recording this Tuesday night, by the way, just because it's kind of been a wild week in a lot of ways. So whether this comes out Tuesday night or on Wednesday, the next time you'll hear from us is Monday at 9:30. That schedule is going to be Monday at 9:30 and then Wednesday at 9:30 for most of the season. That's what we're going to try to stick to. So let us know your thoughts on this rookie class. Let us know your thoughts on that incredible Barr story and anything else that is coming to your mind. We love you guys. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Connor Rodgers. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you on Monday.